Jannie de Villiers, we seem to have hit a situation in South Africa that is quite frightening to the person who doesn't understand it. And we look at the price per tonne of white maize meal, and it's quite scary. Should we be worried?
Yeah, I think if we didn't receive rain in the past 2 weeks, we would have been worried a lot, because then we would have seen a tremendous spike in the food prices. But as far as maize meal is concerned, but also as far as those products who are feeding from yellow maize, and I'm talking specifically poultry, dairy, and the meat products. What has happened is that we had a very good crop last year, and we have marketed the surplus, and the international buyers were, they were in our market, and they took out, we sold a lot of white maize to Mexico. But we also are selling some white maize, especially to our neighboring countries like Botswana, Namibia, and Zimbabwe, and so on. And what happened was, especially on the yellow side, we've exported quite substantial quantity, maybe a little bit more than what was surplus in yellow. And this is normal for South Africa. And then we sometimes import. But what also happened was some of the animal feed people start using white maize for animal feed purposes. They can do that. And that made the stock level of the white maize going down a lot. And there's a huge spike in the prices for the months of February, March. But now with the rain, the new season, the prices are already, I think it's lower, 30% lower than what it's currently. And that 30% lower price compares very favorably to, on a year-on-year basis, it's like a single-digit increase. So we will see a short spike in food prices. And then from April, May, I think we will be going through on a sort of a normal level.
Well, there were many people, I mean, it spiked at about 3,300 a tonne, which was enormously high. And I think that scared a lot of people. They saw bread prices, they saw feed price, everything going up. And it's good to hear some good news that it is coming down again, as opposed to our rand against the dollar and the pound and the euro. But the farmers' costs are going up and up and up. The petrol price has gone up. And I think looking at that collectively, that scared a lot of people, together with the news that we'd exported 150,000 tonnes across the border to Zimbabwe.
Yeah, I think the input cost is going to increase for the next season. Luckily, currently the crop that's in was done with a lower, let's say, input cost in the fertilizer. The rand was a little bit stronger. The next season is going to be very tough for us, because then all these increases are going through. So at the moment, I think we're going to see a fairly normal season. Although the crop is not through yet, we still need a little bit of rain to make sure that's going through. But I think if we look at the hectares planted and the current status, the potential of the crop, South Africa will probably produce another little bit of a surplus, and we will be, the prices are nice. The price, the 3,300 Rand is going to drop to about 2,300 Rand. And if we're going to receive more rain in this month, I think the price could go even lower than that.
There's an awful outcry from the farming community regarding the stock exchange, and you know exactly where I'm coming from now.
Yes.
That price fixing. Now, it's a bad terminology, price fixing, but it is price fixing.
No, I think if you think about the definition according to the Competition Act of South Africa, it is not. What they're doing is they are fixing a cost, a proportion of the price. That is the transport cost between every delivery point, every silo, and Randfontein, which is the delivery point that we've agreed about. Now, what the farmers are saying is let the market determine that cost. Because at the moment, the JSE, they do a certain calculation, they collect information, they calculate it, and then they publish it, and then it's a fixed proportion. And what the farmers are screaming about is, why can't the market also determine that fixed proportion? And so it's a very small component of the total price, and the price is actually still being determined by supply and demand on the stock exchange.
If I put you on the spot, what do you prefer? The fixed price by the stock exchange or a floating market and let the market decide?
Yeah, I think
a free market really is what we really should be.
This is what we want. This is what we're promoting. I think when you look at that specific proportion, the Grain South Africa's got a position, we want to remove it so that the free market can sort that out. This is our formal position. When you look at it like an economist, there are farmers that's going to benefit from a fixed system, and there are farmers that's going to lose out on this fixed system. And what we've seen recently was that the one group here in the Western Cape, for instance, they want to remove it, and the guys in the Southern Cape said, listen, we are actually worse off, or we're going to be worse off because we're lying further from the market itself, and they said, please keep it. So there are pros and cons of both, but when you look at the fundamental, like a free market, you actually want that proportion to be determined by the market.
Well, I'm glad we're talking about this, because I can tell you now categorically, there are many members of the government that weren't even aware of this situation.
Yeah.
And now it's come to light, and we're talking about it, and they will further read about it in Harvest SA. Yeah. There's a lot of people that are also worried about there not being a free market as well. Yeah. So I think you might find you've got strange bedfellows on this one.
Yeah. No, it is a controversial thing, and I mean, for us as an organization, it's also difficult because we've got farmers who are members that says they wanted to maintain it, and some who says, please remove it. So we're also in a very difficult situation, but what we also found was that the JSE went with all the documentation and all the comments they received to the Financial Services Board. They had a look at it, and they said, listen, the most important thing here is to keep the market liquid. And if standardization and maintaining this is good for the JSE, then this is what they've protected.
I was going to say, so I can be a bit naughty here and say they were vested interest there.
Absolutely.
Let's look after our money-making shares.
They have come to us today, and they've also explained that and say, our first interest is to keep the liquidity in the market. And they said for that reason they want to maintain this because... But
not the best interest of the man in the street, is it?
Well, there are going to be winners.
Only those who buy shares or commodities.
Yes. Yeah, well, there's going to be winners and losers in this instance. Yes.
Yeah, it's a bit unfair on the farmer who at the end of the day gets the rock bottom price, and that's the end of it.
That's it. But I think the other thing is that fixing of the transport cost, or the location differential as we call it, is also assisting the farmers to get pre-season contracts, you know, at a higher level than what it would have been if it was traded without that. Now we're getting a little bit technical, but there's also some negatives for the farmers in the whole process as well. It's not just a one-sided affair here.
Well, you know, it's good to hear that it's not a one-sided affair, but it still is. There's room for negotiation, I think, on this one as to what is right and what
We're
is
still
wrong.
trying to convince the other role players, because in this instance, the farmers were in favor of removing it, but the silo operators and the traders and the animal feed people and the millers, they were all in favor of maintaining it. So it is almost like the one side of the market wants to you know, we maybe have got more appetite for risk as farmers. You know, we live with the rain and all those sort of things, and the farmers were saying, you know, give us a shot that we can do it ourselves.